Hey you guys, are you on the fence on whether or not to homeschool your kids? Maybe wondering if homeschooling is even for you? No worries. I have the secret key that I believe if anybody does, they will know if they should homeschool or not. So I was actually very lucky to have a homeschooling friend to kind of guide me into this, and so because of that, I feel like this knowledge needs to be shared. I wish I had known this sooner. So to get started, she just, showed me all of her curriculum, and then she said, Lacey, you should read these books. I was like, so I did. I read these books, and the first one that I highly recommend if you can only read one before the school season starts, this is the one you want to read. This is For the Children's Sake. It's the Foundations of Education for Homeschool, for home and school, not for just like homeschooling. It talks a lot about, which in the homeschool world, Charlotte Mason is like pretty big. It talks a lot about her and her philosophy on homeschooling, but it also just talks a lot about like your home atmosphere in general. So even if you don't decide to homeschool, this is a great one to like, I don't know, I feel like I read this book and all of a sudden I realized that me and my family were not living in a greenhouse. Now, I talked about this in a previous video about how homeschoolers are often looked at as living in a bubble, and that is not the case. They are living in a greenhouse where they can be better prepared for the elements outside the greenhouse, right? They're young, they soak in everything good, bad, and ugly, and so by keeping them in your greenhouse, you open up this magical world almost. And so I realized that my family was not living in this greenhouse, and it's not like we have crazy lives. We just were not in this greenhouse. So I desperately wanted to put my kids into this greenhouse to keep them safe. Now this theory of mine, the greenhouse, is not mentioned in this book. I actually took that from somebody's Facebook post. Don't know who said it, don't know who did it, regardless. The greenhouse theory I absolutely love. I'm not keeping my kids in a bubble, I'm protecting them. I'm putting them in a greenhouse to protect them from harsher elements that they're just not ready for yet. So because of that, that is why I homeschool. And reading this book helped me get that mind shift and perspective of this is one of the best things you could do for your kids right now. I do want to put a caveat in there that I did already know that I wanted, that I needed to homeschool my kids. I just was very nervous, didn't know how, didn't know if I was going to be up to it. This book made me feel excited and ready, and just all the possibilities were going through my mind when I read this book. So this is the #1 book that I would read if you only have one to read before the school year starts. Have it be this one. The second book, which I actually didn't read till this summer, is called The Read-aloud Family. Now I absolutely love this book. In this book she actually gives, in the very back, great read-alouds that you can read to your children in all different ages. She even gives like little snippets of what each story is about. It's a really, really great book, great read. What I like the best is that it was a very easy read as well. She references another book that made her, that like did a study for children that are read aloud versus children that aren't. And that is where I really put my thoughts into this. I've always read to my children out loud, and I've always like known it was good for them, but I didn't realize how good it was for them until reading this. Now, the title of this book, you also see it and you think The Read-aloud Family, well yeah, you're just supposed to read to your kids. That was honestly my thought, and that's probably why it took me so long to read it. But now having read it, I'm able to put into words, I am able to actually form sentences in my thoughts on reading aloud. I'm able to actually be like, hey, yeah, no, we're always going to read aloud as a family. Even when my kid can read on their own. Even when my kid is 17 and almost done with high school, we are going to read aloud together as a family. It just bonds you and it brings you closer together. So, and there's a whole bunch of other information in this book about reading aloud to your family. So I highly, highly, highly recommend you to read this book. These are the 2 books that I mentioned that will change your life and your family's life if you decide to homeschool, or even if you don't. You do not have to homeschool to get something out of these books. I always do a book review on here, and this one is definitely more geared towards homeschooling, but I just want you guys to know that homeschooling is not for everyone. Do not feel bad if you read this book and you're like, I still have zero desire to homeschool my kids. I still don't have that passion. I didn't get that magic spark ignite inside of me like she talked about. That's okay. Homeschooling isn't for everyone. I have 4 other siblings in my family. One of them doesn't have kids. 2 of them don't have kids. We have one. She's having her first kid. Anyways, the other 2 siblings that have children that are school age are not homeschooling again this year. They homeschooled. One of them homeschooled last year. One of them didn't. I'm the only one that's sticking with it. And no judgment whatsoever. But if you're thinking about homeschooling, or if you want to homeschool, or if you just want to bring some peace and calm to your family, these 2 books, you guys, they will change the way that you look at the world. They will change the way that you view your kids and your family time. These are the 2 books I recommend. I'll link them in the description box below. And if you guys have any good homeschooling books that you like to read, let me know in the comments down below. I'm always looking for something new and entertaining to read. And sorry, we joined a toddler at the very end. But that's it. Bye guys. These are the 2 books I highly recommend. If you guys, I will link them in the description box below. If you guys have any questions or books,